Webcomics cartoonist spends Kickstarter money on dead wasps, sets fire to books and deletes archives by I had 360k_karma. Damn it. This is some old drama, but I only heard of it recently and it's bizarre enough to merit a post about it. Also, it seems like the cartoonist's name might be a pseudonym, but I'm just going to use it, along with he/him/his pronouns, because it's the name the comic was written under, and I'm not sure what their real name is anyway. Anyway, this is the story of Pictures for Sad Children. Edit: according to the comments, Campbell transitioned during this period and now identifies as female. I've changed the pronouns accordingly, although I'll still leave the name as John Campbell. I'm not going to mention Campbell's current name, since I figure she would rather not get the attention. Background: Pictures for Sad Children, or PFSC, was a webcomic by John Campbell which started in 2007. The main character was Paul, a man who gets hit by a car and dies. Now invincible, immortal and endowed with supernatural powers, he goes back to his job, since he doesn't really have anything better to do. Later storylines introduced more characters, including Paul's co-worker Gary, a family with the power to turn water into wine, and a woman who is constantly surrounded by butterflies, which help her steal things. All of the characters lead miserable, meaningless lives with little to no emotional connection to each other. It featured a minimal art style, with stick figure characters and lowercase lettering. The dark humor and surprisingly funny writing made it successful, and led to the creator putting on an art show in the same style. Some of the images in that link are broken, but if you scroll down there are some working pictures near the bottom. Eventually, Campbell started a Kickstarter campaign asking for $8,000 to fund the release of a physical book of PFSC, and that's where the problem started. The drama. The Kickstarter was not only successful, but in fact, was backed by more than 1,000 people, raising a little over $50,000, more than 6 times the goal. Campbell started printing and shipping the books, each of which had a dead wasp taped to it for some reason. However, monetary problems meant that many of the books were delayed, leading some backers to ask whether they were ever going to get their books. By February 2014, Campbell had shipped around 800 of the books, leaving around 200 backers without the books they had paid for almost 2 years ago, and many were waiting for an update on when they could expect to receive their books. As it turns out, the answer was never. On February 27, Campbell posted a video on Kickstarter, of 127 books in a bonfire in her backyard, explaining that for each of the 127 emails she had received about shipping the books, she had burned one copy. She also threatened to burn an additional copy for each time someone attempted to contact her. This was followed by a nearly 5,000-word essay explaining that no one would be receiving their books, nor would there be any refunds. Campbell then said, if you would like a refund, please contact a fan of my work directly for your money. This is where the money would come from anyway. I am cutting out the middleman, and I don't deserve to eat and sleep. I don't deserve anything good or bad. There isn't good or bad and there isn't an I to deserve them. After stating that I don't want to make sure my friends and family have money. I don't want to transplant the arguing family of my childhood into a wealthier context. I want the attitudes and social structures we are using to change. The post finished by asking people to send Campbell more money, and specifying that I want to establish relationships with a group of people who can pay for my baseline needs like food and rent. I am looking for people who do not feel they need to see any return on their investment. Obviously, a 4,500-word rant that can basically be summarized as I burned your books, capitalism is a joke, now send me money didn't particularly please the 200 or so people still waiting for their copy. The fact that Campbell immediately deleted the archives of PFSC didn't help either. It's likely that the reason Campbell couldn't afford to ship the books is because the dead wasps taped to each copy ate up her shipping budget. Aftermath. After the archives were deleted, one of the backers who had received his book offered to send it to anyone who hadn't gotten their own copy. After getting more than 100 requests, he started a book club, sending copies of the book from person to person. Soon, some people scanned their books and posted them online, allowing more people to access them. Eventually, most, but not all, of the comics run made its way to Imgur, and you can read it here if you want to. I've found a couple references to later comics by Campbell, but they all seem to have never been put online, and none of them were nearly as popular as PFSC, which was probably intentional on Campbell's part. Despite being extremely popular prior to all of this, PFSC was pretty much dead in the water afterwards, and even if Campbell had tried to start it up again it's unlikely it would have taken off after what happened.
Instapot Instapissed by rustyshaklefordII. I am a part of a fanatical group of Instapot enthusiasts who identify themselves as potheads. Enthusiasts usually have 2 or more Instapots, multiple sizes and accessories, and are a part of many groups to share recipes that will try to jimmy-rig any recipe into one using an Instapot. The best one I have found, and love us the Aloha Instapot community on FB. While the rest of the potheads eventually lost pressure, the Aloha group always has tons of posts and people showing off their rigs, recipes and hacks. A nice part of the FB group is that you can search for recipes easily and see people's pics and feedback on the recipe. In this group, there are members who have ascended into godlike status for their recipes. We are talking the best beef stew ever. I am from Hawaii and am super biased. Sweet and sour short ribs, Kahlua pork, Lilikoi cheesecake, just to name a few. Because of their surefire record, they are requested to make riffs on recipes, and it's often said to try their recipes first before making other stuff, cause it's broke de mouth on alicious. Over time, the group of super posters has died down. They have created their own databases or vanished, except for one OG. This one guy posts at least 3 times a week, and is often asked general questions by the group for help. He was even asked by Good Morning America to demonstrate recipes he made because of his popularity within the group. He is humble, helps new users, and most importantly has like a 1/3 of the group's recipe database. In turn, he is very well respected by the group, and everyone in the cult sings his praises and claps when he posts until now. In a very dramatic post, this super user had said he is leaving the group because an admin told him to limit his posts. He had too many pictures immediately. Hundreds of pissed potheads sound off. Over 2,000 people start calling out the admin and calling her not local enough, the ultimate Hawaii insult. One of the posters calls out her version of poi, a Hawaiian dish made with a cutting board, super not local style, and calling for her to resign as admin. Multiple posts are created calling out the admin of the group with hundreds of comments in each. When the admin catches a whiff of her turd, she immediately posts that she never would ask the super user to leave, and that if we just think about it, it's better for everyone. That sets everyone off. People are pissed. She may have well said we should all cook on the stoves for the reactions. Hundreds of people call her out and leave the group in response. The admin, feeling the heat, makes a follow-up post saying I'm not sorry and I'm not apologizing. A user creates Rich Lum's Aloha Instapot group in response by a defector, promising 100% recipes from the super user. It's been up for a few hours and has 3,000 likes so far. The guy hasn't even joined yet. Will she be ousted? Will the super user join his newly created group? He hadn't yet, IDK, but you bet your ass I'm watching with my popcorn. Edit. The one true king has ascended to his pressurized throne. His page picked up 4,000 followers in 6 hours. The new group is concerned about spies because a person who was anti-rich joined and was called out by a huge group of people. The memes have been great. Everyone needs to QPR is my personal favorite. Edit 2. Aloha has deleted most mentions of the scandal, and has frozen all comment abilities on Rich's recipes. Anyone now mentioning the scandal is being banned. The mod has made a few defiant posts about not apologizing, and generally the response has been, "Why you licked us?" Aloha has lost over 1,000 followers. As for Rich, his new page has picked up 8,000 likes and growing.
Splatoon. So the Splatoon community has a problem with people faking their deaths by Groenboys. Splatoon is a family-friendly shooting game released in 2015 for the Wii U. It got frequent updates, and a sequel released in 2017 for the Switch which also got frequent updates. Both games have sold very well and have very active communities. The game is very anime-esque, attracting lots of Overwatch type of players. In the Splatoon community you have competitive players, fan artists, source filmmakers/Gmod, both animating tools, video makers, casual players and more. For some strange reason, the Splatoon community has a problem with people faking their deaths. Today I want to discuss 3 of cases of this happening. Brian Jackson 2. Brian was a Gmod video maker and he was quite the strange character. He could not for his life take any sort of criticism, even if he claimed he did. One time a person impersonated him and BJ was so angry he basically began harassing the impersonator. Probably the most notable thing about him is that he had a thing for little girls, like the time he flirted with a 13-year-old girl or the time he made a Twitter post shipping himself with another underage girl. He himself was 26. It all came to a climax when on July 7, 2019 the Brian Jackson 2 YouTube account made a community post declaring that he had committed suicide. But you have read the title, so you know it wasn't true. There were many inconsistencies with the community post. The post was made his sibling, the post said, but the way it was typed was very similar to how BJ typed. People also pointed out that making a post about your brother's death and screaming at everyone right after your brother's death isn't normal behavior. And lastly, BJ had stated multiple times in the past that he was the only child from his family. BJ's friends claimed that BJ was really dead and had proof, but that proof never came to light. Inkix Kitty. On May 18, 2020 an Splatoon SFM user by the Twitter name @AxaLobsterLord passed away due to the cancer. He was a very positive figure and lots of Twitter users greatly mourned about this user's death. So Inkix Kitty opened her Twitter, looked at all the positivity Lobster got and thought, oh, I can use this for attention. On May 19, 2020, literally the day after Lobster passed away, the mother of Kitty made a post announcing that Kitty had committed suicide. It didn't take long before a Discord conversation leaked that saw Kitty saying that she did the thing because of attention. While the Discord conversation might have been about her cheating on her Discord boyfriend, it wasn't hard to figure out that this conversation was made after her mother made the Twitter post. On May 22, 2020, @InkyKitty made a tweet saying that she was actually alive. She was grounded and her mother made the tweet because she was fighting with Kitty's dad. Buried under mountains of tweets she says that the reason why her mother and dad were fighting was that he touched me in the wrong places. The reaction all of this was mixed. Some people still support her, some people still don't believe her. She did get lots of death threats though. One death threat was discovered to be from a sock puppet, but I doubt that all of them are fabricated. Axel Lobster Lord. Yep, the death kitty took inspiration from also faked their own death. On 23rd of May, 5 days after Lobster made the tweet that he was going to die and @MadisonSFM_arts confirming his death, Lobster made a tweet longer explaining that he wasn't really dead. He said that faking his death was a test and that he now deeply regrets doing the test. People became furious, calling his bullshit out. Lobster presumably also got death threats like Kitty. But the shit really hit the fan when @AxaLobsterLord deactivated his account, probably due to death threats, and @MadisonSFM_arts refused to take responsibility for announcing his/her friend's fake death. The Splatoon community on Twitter became split. Some people were angry at Lobster and Kitty for faking their deaths, others were mad at the death threats Lobster and Kitty received and wanted to give Lobster and Kitty a second chance because both were still underage. Lots of people in the Splatoon community left the community, the SFM part at least. The rest that remained were either angry at the people who faked their deaths from making the Splatoon SFM community look bad or were made at people still basing their opinion of a community from a few bad apples. Final words. So as far as I know, 5 people in the Splatoon community have faked their deaths so far. 3 I discussed in this thread. @ScaratyGirl is the 4th one who I think faked her death in January of this year, but her Twitter account is protected. She presumably left the Splatoon community for good and all of the other tweets related to her fake death are either deleted or were posted by protected accounts, so there wasn't enough information to get the full context for this thread. The last one to fake his/her death I can't even find the name for, so that's a lost cause. Of course, there is lots of more drama in the Splatoon community from users acting like children to pedophiles, but I didn't want to make this write-up even longer. I am not a member of the Splatoon community, So lots of this drama I had to through many tweets and YouTube videos just to get enough context. Lots of tweets were deleted and some were just impossible to find. I probably got details wrong and this post might be not the most comprehensive in comparison with other posts on this subreddit, but I tried my best. Thank you for reading and stay healthy.
Disney pin trading Rainbow Mickey is gay by _Ethel Beavers. During her weekly Disney pin Instagram live sale, this woman was showing a Rainbow Mickey silhouette pin. As she showed it, she told a story about how one time someone at Disneyland assumed she was gay because she was wearing a Rainbow Mickey pin. She felt attacked and so offended by that. She was pissed that Rainbow Mickey is a gay symbol. And she said it's a real bummer that rainbows represent that other group because to her they are a Christian symbol for some reason. So obviously the gay Disney pin trading community was pissed. And they came into this lady's live sale calling her out for her homophobic behavior. And she got her feelings all hurt saying she doesn't believe in homosexuality but that doesn't make her a bad person. So then after the sale this feud went into the DMs. And you might be thinking that this situation was resolved in the DMs. You would be wrong. This lady starts going on the most insane rant about her Christian values. And then the gay Disney pin trading community was even more pissed and made an ultimatum that if you support the homophobic lady you will be blocked. So the original homophobic lady starts losing thousands of followers. Then the homophobic lady releases an hour-long apology video about how her feelings were really hurt because everyone cancelled her. She said she's been in the pin trading community for 10 years and people are bullying her for her beliefs. She tried to say she was really sorry for offending people but she stays true to her biblical beliefs that homosexuality is a sin. Basically the worst apology in Disney pin history. Who could have guessed that Rainbow Mickey would be such a controversial pin? And now the Disney pin trading community will never be the same.
Fountain pens, Facebook dip your toes in pen drama by oryxic. For anyone who doesn't know what a fountain pen is, a fountain pen is a pen with a nib that is an internal reservoir for liquid ink. They're the granddaddy to the ballpoint pen and the more efficient child of the dip pen. These days ballpoint and gel pens are more common, but there is a dedicated group who loves having and writing with fountain pens. Why? They are unique to write with and very customizable. You can get all kinds of cool colors, fancy nibs, and shitloads of custom ink including color-changing ink, scented ink, fluorescent ink, ghost ink, sheening ink, sparkly ink, and this entire category of inks that are tantalizingly tagged impervious to lasers. These aren't referral links, Betty W., this is just my usual ink dealer and they usually have good swatches. So, what does one do in fountain pen fandom? Well, Terry's a lot of ink reviewing, the color, the sheen, is it a wet ink, does it behave, does it ever dry, etc. Many of the more interesting inks are made in small batches by artisanal ink makers so they can be a little hit or miss, and each one can perform differently. Also, a lot of paper reviewing, does it let the ink feather? Is there bleed through? The other common topic is showing off your sweet-ass pens. Not my sweet-ass pens, just a big pile of sweet-ass pens. In general, the fountain pen hobby is not particularly snobby. People will show off anything from $1,000 Aura pens all the way down to $20 Limmies, and in general Terry's not a lot of judgment. If it writes well and you like it, that's the important thing. There is a Facebook fountain pen group with approximately 18,000 members that is currently embroiled in low-stakes drama. One of the more popular post types is the EEDC or everyday carry post. These aren't usually full of high-dollar pens because most people don't want a $500 pen rattling around in their pocket all day, but they are usually full of random pocket crap, including your daily fountain pen, a line with flashlights, multi-tools, car keys, and other random crap that you haul around. Given the recent explosion of posts, I'll try to reconstruct what seems have happened. Someone recently posted their EDC with their pen, a flashlight, and their handgun. Comments were made about not really wanting to see guns in the pen group. The person obliged and apologized, psych, they totally didn't. Instead, either through moderator approval, or unspoken agreement, the group decided to double down and have gun show day in the fountain pen group. It started out pretty benign, with just basic "hey, here is my gun and look at my pen also." Of course, the people who were already not thrilled about the guns were really not thrilled about post after post after post of guns. When people complained, they were snidely directed to the rules which explicitly allowed guns in the EDC pictures. The posts quickly devolved from "just see my gun" to all the usual participants in a gun circle jerk. "Our friend, let me make sure I show the biggest gun possible." "Our other friend, I'm cool but like to annoy people." "Their friend, I don't have a gun to show but anybody that doesn't like guns is a cream puff." And "our dearest friend, think of the troops." This of course, started the counter posts of various ridiculous EDCs, including someone's daily slingshot, someone's butt plug. The butt plug ironically featuring a comment from one of the gun posters demanding that the person be banned for the vulgar content, and finally this ridiculous firearm, that no one would possibly feel safe carrying into a grocery store. A long-time poster tried to make a point about how random political statements can make people in the group uncomfortable, at which point the post quickly devolved to how it's totally different because Hillary was going to take our guns. There was a small side kerfluffle where a guy posted his EDC showing a tobacco pipe because ha ha ha, it's dangerous, and then getting accused of being a Nazi because he had a mug turned in a way that obscured some German phrasing on it, followed by a meltdown and rant about how disgusting it was to be accused of being a Nazi. The moderator of the group finally stepped in and posted that fun was over, chill on the guns for now and they'd do another one later. However, Facebook being Facebook, posts don't seem to appear in any sort of logical order whatsoever, so most people's timelines are still being hammered with all the gun posts. In response, we start getting text posts asking if this was going to be a gun group now and expressing displeasure with this. One person brought up that they had been assaulted and threatened with a gun very recently and was having PTSD from the wall of guns, and felt it was unfair because they couldn't simply scroll by because their entire Facebook wall was guns now. They were quickly piled on and called a pansy liberal snowflake who needs to get over it. Others pointed out they didn't give a shit about guns in general, but they were here to see pens. Not guns, dogs, watches, flashlights, knives, keys, trees, or anything else that people felt the need to share. And then there were the fair share of rah 28 types intermixed with gun owners saying, "OMG guys, I love guns as much as the next guy, but it's super embarrassing that you're posting a pile of guns with a pen just to try and annoy people. You're not even posting good pens." One man tried a humanitarian approach by explaining that in these scary times people post what comforts them, and thus the guns are appearing because they make people feel safe. Someone else quickly chimed in that they collected yarn and that made them feel comfortable, so buckle up because yarn pictures were going to be incoming every day from now on. As of now, there are no less than 5 festering "why are there so many guns" posts that the moderator hasn't cracked down on. He seems to find the entire thing amusing and is letting people tear into each other with little interest in getting people to chill out, and has basically said that membership is still growing so he has zero fucks to give.
Toontown: The story of a man desperate for fame at the risk of tanking an entire community by SynthRatTT. This happened multiple years back, for the record, but it remains a truly epic tale. Toontown Online is a Disney MMO which has been officially closed for about 6 years now. It survives technically illegally through multiple private servers a la RuneScape/MapleStory/WoW, each with its own petty drama. Despite the questionable legality, however, we've been lucky enough for the Big D to leave us alone. This tale is that of someone who risked it all to give himself more power. Dubito first appeared in the community in early 2016, along with his intriguing project which he called Toontown 2. Unlike other servers, he promised a total remake of the game, in Unity. Among other claims, he said that his team had already written millions of lines of code. Along with this announcement, he announced a beta key contest on the game's, admittedly pretty intriguing, website, which sported a countdown clock to a closed beta and high-quality assets. Some fellows quickly discovered that all of the beta keys were single letters and numbers. Mine was 6, which caused Dubito to have a meltdown and cancel his beta key contest outright, as well as set his countdown clock back 70 days from the 7 it was currently at. We'll get to that shortly. And at the same time as all of that, the website was searched through and it was found to contain multiple full-length pirated movies, which Dubito claimed were for a Minecraft server. Over the next couple months, Dubito and crew continued to post about Toontown 2 on multiple sites, announcing that some YouTubers had been given keys to play the game, and they would eventually be streaming it for us to see. Many were skeptical considering the fact that we had still seen 0 in-game screenshots of this server, let alone footage. And what do you know? Before that countdown clock hit the day the game was to be opened, their team had claimed Disney gave them a cease and desist notice. Another example of Disney taking down the little man, right? Not quite so, as it would turn out. One of the streamers which Dubito had reached out to for help advertising his project released a video shortly after, saying that the entire development team was dormant, and that all signs of progress were simply a hoax. In addition, he confirmed the rumor that the CD claimed by Dubito was entirely made up as an excuse to end the project. Further, this YouTuber, known as Loopy from here on out, said he would never work with Dubito's studio ever again. Cut to some months later, in December of 2016. A new Toontown server, Project Altis, releases out of the blue and was an instant hit. It was prominently advertised by many YouTubers in the Toontown community, most notably our friend Loopy from earlier. But something was Many people noticed that Altis and Toontown 2 had essentially 2 iterations of the same exact logo, just with different text. And upon release, many joined the game's Discord to see a familiar figurehead running the show. It was Dubito, who had purposefully obscured his leadership over the game for months. He knew his name was Poison, so he asked for the game's staff to cover him up until the waters had cooled and many had forgotten him. And it worked out. Nobody but the truly jaded really thought much of Dubito's return, or that Loopy was mysteriously working together with him despite saying he would never work with the man again. However, Project Altis came with its own set of controversies that made the game a bit of a laughingstock. Here's a rapid fire of those. The game was decompiled and found to be using stolen code from the most popular server of the time. Dubito and co claimed they got permission, and yet it was shortly found that they absolutely did not, simply by asking the other server's staff. Dubito was found using a Discord bot as a mole to spy on an opposing server, as well as claiming it had a rat. It didn't. Dubito occasionally got into donation wars, bribes, with Toontown streamers who eventually all ended up playing and advertising Altis. The game was repeatedly hacked and exploited to hilarious ends, with user info being leaked on multiple occasions. Dubito launched an in-game charity event, in which every enemy defeated would give 1/10 of a cent to charity. This sounds small, but in truth enemies are defeated en masse every few minutes of gameplay, so it would have been a good idea, if it weren't a hoax. Once decompiled, it was found that the game was not pulling numbers of defeated enemies from in-game and projecting it on their site, but instead the in-game counter was being pulled from the site itself. In other words, the counter used entirely faked numbers and no money was ever donated. User stats and information was greatly exaggerated or occasionally entirely cooked to look more popular than it actually was. But this all leads us to May, if memory serves, of 2017, when in a sudden move, Dubito simply put the game up on Steam Greenlight and asked players to vote for it to get accepted onto the digital storefront. This was an extremely reckless and borderline jeopardizing for the larger Toontown community. Putting Toontown unofficially onto Steam could have spelled doom for every other server owned. This is because many believe that if Disney took one server down, the same would be done to every other server, simply because only taking action on one illegal server and not every illegal server would set an unusual precedent for Disney's ownership of the game IP. Despite all of this, Dubito would not budge. He actually insisted that this was in no way illegal, simply because his server had removed any references of Disney characters. The original game included such characters as Mickey and Goofy. Many pointed out that this was obviously not how copyright laws worked, and eventually the game was actually DMCA'd by fans simply to get the Steam greenlight page taken down before Disney took notice. And eventually, this caused Dubito to give up on this scheme. This is where Dubito mostly fell off for people. He stuck around mostly quietly for some time after, but this was truly the end of most people's trust for him. And so he once again faded away, but not before leaving Project Altis and subsequently sending it his own cease and desist, bringing this drama full circle. There's plenty of other incidents of Toontown drama such as this one, so please let me know if this was as interesting to read as it was for me to recall and write. Edit, added the fact that the Toontown 2 cease and desist was faked. And here's an extra Dubito tale my friend reminded me of. Near is a program which launches the game and secures the code, which most Toontown servers use. On mid-late 2016, Dubito had the wise idea of taking Near and renaming it into his own program, Dubrari, lol. He then attempted to sell keys to run this program to other servers. Needless to say, people caught on fast, and as far as I know, nobody fell for it.
Guitars will just ignore federal law and import illegal wood. What could go wrong? By gaporpaporpjones. First up, our cast of characters. Gibson Guitar Corp. is a musical instrument manufacturer, focusing primarily on guitars and basses. They were founded in 1908 and have changed hands several times over the years. The most contentious times were the years they were helmed by Henry Juskiewicz, who orchestrated a buyout of the company in 1986. Under Henry J's thumb, the company began a long slide from a highly respected instrument maker into a Harley-Davidson-esque lifestyle brand, focused less on producing quality instruments and more on producing branded clothing. This led to many questionable decisions, some of which will be chronicled here. The Lacey Act is a protectionist trade act enacted in 1900. Note this is several years before Gibson existed. Its scope has been amended, and now the primary function is to prevent the spread of non-native species through illegal importation. It does this, in part, by making it illegal to import plants or animals that were illegal to export. There are many other aspects, but this is the important one in this story. This section essentially serves as an implied trade reciprocity with all countries, rather than having to negotiate trade terms with every single trade partner. If the export of a particular plant or animal is made illegal in their country, it's automatically illegal to import to ours. This works on multiple levels, and has done so for quite some time. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are the people that everyone laughs about up to the moment where they bust down your door and arrest your ass for violation of federal law, at which point you realize that illegal trafficking in flora and fauna was probably not a good idea after all. They tend to be confused with National Park Service rangers by those that like to laugh at other people's professions. Incidentally, those types of people usually end up paying a significant portion of their income as fines when they inevitably litter and destroy things while visiting a national park. But that's not why we're here. Now, the backstory. The above link is to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife affidavit which got them their warrant to raid Gibson's factory in August of 2011. It's only 30 pages, worth the read, but consider this post the TL. Doctor, there was a previous raid in 2009 which I won't be covering in depth here as I'm not as familiar with the particulars. In short, USFW found that Gibson had been importing lumber that was illegal to export from India. There's something known as the International Tariff Code or Harmonized Schedule that assists in categorizing items across the world. This categorization is standardized to facilitate ease of trade. India forbids export of items categorized under HS Code 4407, wood sawn or chipped lengthwise, sliced or peeled, whether or not planed, sanded or jointed, of a thickness exceeding 6 m. In other words, you cannot export lumber from India unless it has already been worked on by Indian sawyers, millwrights, or other workers. The decision to prohibit export under this code was made to protect jobs in India. Every country does this to protect industries that can be easily overrun by foreign production in some way, including the US. In addition to the findings that Gibson was importing these items with full knowledge they were not legal, there were numerous discrepancies with the importation documents. The pallets of wood that Gibson had in their possession weren't supposed to be at Gibson. You see, importation is a very document-heavy endeavor. This is why most companies don't do it directly and rely on experts, which Gibson did. A company called Luthier's Mercantile International was the importer of record on these shipments, which were supposedly on the way to Germany. They were not. They were headed to Gibson. It should be noted I have not seen any indication that LMI was charged or reprimanded for this in any way. I can only assume that these discrepancies were either minor oversights or at the behest of Gibson. In August of 2011 USFW executed the above search warrant on Gibson's factory, seizing multiple pallets of wood in the process. And now, finally, the drama. Henry J. is a Republican. This is actually important. You see, Henry J. is one of those business above all types of Republicans, and he wasn't too happy about having to abide by a protectionist United States law that's older than the company he purchased. According to Ol Hank, this raid was because he was a Republican and the Obama administration was simply trying to destroy American business by forcing them to follow a 100-plus-year-old law that, again, is protectionist in nature. The conservative commentary engine went into full effect, trying to spin this as the kind of federal overreach that was killing manufacturing in the United States. Former Speaker of the House John Boehner even used this raid as fodder against the Obama administration in one of his speeches. Everyone actually involved in the musical instrument industry knew this was pure BS. As almost every guitar manufacturer utilizes rosewood, and Gibson are far from the sole guitar manufacturer in the US, but none of that mattered. Henry J.'s butt had been hurt and he was going to get all his Republican buddies to run to his defense. It was interesting at the time that I personally never saw anyone defend Gibson on musical instrument forums or sites. All of their defense I saw was coming from non-music-oriented forums. The most surprising of these, although not so much in hindsight, was one dedicated to a specific model of rifle popular in the US that I frequented at the time. Out of nowhere this place was filled with support Gibson threads, and suddenly the Lacey Act, an act initially designed to protect our country's wildlife and had recently been expanded to protect our jobs, became the single biggest threat to freedom as we know it. The popular talking point was how Martin Guitars wasn't raided because their CEO donated to the Democratic National Committee. This completely ignored the fact that Martin had not participated in the illegal importation of wood. For a short time it even became the cause de jury of the Tea Party types. Facebook was overrun with various uncles and parents of friends and various Karens and Todds all showing their support for this great American company that had, again, circumvented federal law protecting American jobs and wildlife. For the longest time you could not search online for information about the Lacey Act without ending up reading the opinion of one conservative commentator or another. Well, then what? A year later Gibson admitted to violating the Lacey Act. Yeah. They paid a $300,000 fine and forfeited the majority of the wood that was seized. For a company that supposedly did nothing wrong, that's a lot of kowtowing. So why would they do this? It's simple. As CEO, Henry J. was facing possible criminal charges, and it's not like he could let himself go to jail for breaking the law when he could simply pay a fine with the company's money, now could he? In a desperate and, quite frankly, pathetic attempt to save some sort of face after admitting to breaking the law, Gibson took the wood that had been given back to them and made a government series of guitars, complete with bald eagle carrying a guitar neck at the 12th fret, and which sold out immediately. No doubt almost exclusively to Tea Party followers. This whole incident was where Gibson went from being considered a litigious but mostly harmless dinosaur straight to supervillain status. Their willingness to wield federal law in one hand while ignoring it with the other painted a target on their backs. For decades Gibson has pursued copyright, patent, and trademark lawsuits against various companies for extremely questionable reasons. While most companies were okay with Gibson simply shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, their legal actions have largely not gone in their favor. This was the turning point when it came to Gibson's reputation within the musical instrument industry. A lot of players, myself included, that could reasonably give them money despite not approving of their legal tactics, which were legal tactics, if dickish, no longer could support them. At the same time Henry J was going full bore into the lifestyle brand idea and started buying up consumer electronics companies so he could plaster the Gibson name on more stuff. This ended with Gibson filing for bankruptcy because, get this, nobody cares about anything but guitars with the Gibson name on it, and all this attempted brand expansion did was hemorrhage money from the start. As part of the bankruptcy, Henry J was forced to step down as CEO. This did not end Gibson's legal stupidity, but that's yet another story for another time. I swear no hobby has more drama than the world of guitars. Anyone want to hear about the time a scrap of paper erupted into a months-long Fender hate storm that ran literally hundreds of forum pages long?
Yu-Gi-Oh! A top Yu-Gi-Oh! Player breaks a gentleman's agreement, leading to a debate about ethics in competitive children's card games by TenorFax. All links in the post lead to video clips. Unless you live under a rock, you probably know what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. It began as an episodic manga in 1996. But its focus shifted to card games after a two-part storyline about the cards became unexpectedly popular. From there, a real version of the card game was produced by Konami, which took the world by storm in the early mid-2000s. It survives to this day due to a combination of nostalgia and 5 anime spin-offs, though it occasionally gets boosts of popularity through things like Yu-Gi-Oh! The abridged series or Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the first online fandom that I joined back in 2002 or 2003. And it's always been a dumpster fire. There are a million ways to enjoy the series, and everyone hates everyone outside of their little subgroup. You've got it all: sub versus stub wars, casual versus competitive wars, translation drama, meltdowns over multiple spin-offs, and so on. We aren't even getting into official issues, such as how the game's main distributor outside of Japan, Upper Deck Entertainment, lost the rights to the franchise after producing counterfeit cards, or how the spin-off Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, the card games on motorcycles spin-off, had to undergo a rewrite after one of its voice actresses was involved in a cult. Today, I'll focus on a controversy in competitive play. While the person in question has written multiple articles and forum posts under his real name, I'll simply refer to him as the Champ. The Champ got his start in competitive play in 2010, when he placed top 8 at the United States National Championships. Over the next couple of years, he made the top cut in multiple Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, YCS, tournaments, a tournament circuit that primarily takes place in North America and Europe. However, 2013 was the Champ's breakout year. After he won the 2013 North America National Championships, he went on a hot streak over the next 2 years, winning a YCS, making the top 8 in multiple YCS, and placing top 16 in the 2014 North America National Championships. He became one of the figureheads for Alter Reality Games, ARG, a store that hosted an unofficial tournament circuit across North America that aimed to provide a more competitive alternative to Konami's events. He won multiple ARG tournaments, and wrote articles for the website. Unfortunately, he had a controversial tenure with ARG. For instance, the Champ would write an article discussing the issues with a top-tier deck, win a tournament with said deck, then write a follow-up tournament report explaining how he fixed the issues with the deck. This led some to say that the Champ was trying to deceive people. The Champ would also brag about how he had one of the highest number of top cut appearances in the history of the game. However, he was lumping in his unofficial ARG top cuts in with his official top cuts, which is equivalent to combining your NBA record with your street basketball record. Fast forward to 2015. At this time, the Ritual deck Necros dominated the game. Not only did it have an unparalleled level of speed and consistency, but it could easily lock opponents out of the game. By using the card Jin releaser of rituals, a Necros player could prevent their opponent from summoning their most powerful monsters as early as turn 1. In the Necros mirror match, getting Jin locked was a death sentence unless the player could draw one of the few cards that could break the lock. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is infamous for its number of power cards, or single cards that can easily decide a game. In the past, the champ popularized the action of siding out power cards in order to make duels more fair. In this case, both players agree to move their power cards from their main deck to their side deck, sideboard for Magic, the Gathering, players, in between a best-of-3 set to even the playing field. Agreeing to side out cards isn't illegal. At an ARG tournament, the champ played an opponent in a mirror match. After the first duel, the champ offered to side out Jin, and his opponent agreed. Now, while most of Yu-Gi-Oh's power cards were limited to 1 per deck, players could use up to 3 copies of Jin. So while the champ's opponent sided out his only copy of Jin, the champ removed the copy of Jin from his main deck, but added in a second copy from his side deck K. Despite the massive advantage, the champ still lost the duel and the best-of-3 set. Once the genie was out of the bottle, shit hit the fan. Most people called out the champ, saying that his play was technically legal but scummy. This sentiment was echoed by one of the game's head judges, who basically said, "You're a fool if you believe what your opponent tells you." However, there were a vocal minority of tryhards who were, like lol get good scrubs. Naturally, the champ put out a damage control article. While he acknowledged his actions, he argued that lying was a part of the game, admitted that he only advocated siding out power cards so that weaker players couldn't beat him, and ended by arguing that it was actually Konami's fault for printing Jin in the first place, forcing him to make a scummy move to gain a competitive advantage. Essentially, he turned into a real-life Weevil Underwood. To salvage his reputation, the champ called in backup. One of the champ's friends emailed David Serlin, a game designer and author of the famous article Playing to Win. Serlin replied that gentlemen's agreements had no place in tournaments, which is a reasonable stance. However, his second reply was questionable. Unsportsmanlike is a bad word, basically. Patriotic sounds like it means one thing, then it gets applied to the Patriot Act and Patriot missiles, which are both arguably antithetical to what the US should be about. Unsportsmanlike is practically always hijacked to mean some perverted thing, some way to penalize players for faults of other people. That player did a tournament legal move that increases his chance to win. I wouldn't call that unsportsmanlike. More like what his incentive actually is. Of course he should do that, and of course the rules are flawed precisely because they allow it. When you create a button that says press this for an advantage, then someone presses it for an advantage, you don't get to call that unsportsmanlike. If you want to not like the guy or not think he's nice, or see him as a villain, that's fine, but the one thing he definitely is playing to win using tournament legal means, which is pretty damn sportsmanlike. More like a wolf amongst the sheep who are house ruling things and expecting it to go well. I'd give him a pat on the back for proving we need to fix our rules, lol. You really need a solid rule to enforce this card removal thing, if it is to exist at all. And I still think it probably shouldn't be allowed anyway, even if some rule could be devised. It sounds like a for fun thing more than something for actual tournament play. But I can't say for sure because I don't know the specifics. Yes, everyone in this story sounds like a bad anime villain. While the champ's reputation took a hit, he still did well in tournaments. Fast forward to 2016, where the champ announced he was selling a book. For some reason, people were outraged at the idea of a top player selling a book, ignoring all of the free articles he wrote over the years. The people who actually read the book noticed a glaring issue: the champ was encouraging people to cheat. Normally, after a game in a best-of-3 series, the loser gets to pick who goes first in the next game. In his book, the champ argued that if a player lost a game, it would be in their best interest to agree to side out a power card in exchange for letting the winner choose who goes first. While agreeing to side out cards was legal, this tactic fell under an unsportsmanlike conduct, cheating violation, which could get the player disqualified from events and suspended from official tournaments. Once again, the champ went into damage control. In an early prescient rant, he admitted to his mistake, but immediately started arguing, no collusion. Unsurprisingly, this led to a fresh wave of drama. So what happened to the champ? Nothing. He graduated from college and mostly retired from competitive play, though he did manage to make the top cut of the 2017 North America National Championships. Still, his reputation didn't go away, and many players will immediately bring up the Jin incident when the topic of scummy plays is brought up. Thanks for reading. I tried to limit the amount of geek speak in the story, but let me know if I need to clarify something.
Fanfiction Community board woman creates 12+ sock puppet accounts, becomes a fandom celebrity by gaynerdcleric. This is an old one, but a legendary one in fanfiction and Harry Potter circles. It takes place from around 2002 to 2006, when the Harry Potter fanfiction community was really expanding with the creation of sites like fanfiction.net and Fictionally, although most of the drama takes place on the forum site LiveJournal. Also of note was that, at the time, Shadowhunters author Cassandra Clare was a HP fanfiction writer, and she and her friends were massively popular. Think the stereotypical popular clique that everyone wants to join. Mscribe first entered the HP fanfiction community in late 2002. By April of 2003, she had managed to use a veritable army of sock puppets to leverage her way into such popularity that she was roommates with Cassandra Clare at a Harry Potter convention. She also faked a car crash, a major injury, a job working directly with Joe Biden, and a whole hell of a lot else. The timeline is incredibly messy, so I'll just provide a quick summary of each of the sock puppets and their roles in making her famous. Mscribe, the original fanfiction writer, witty blogger, constantly involved in some sort of drama. Clarabella 21, starts out as 31-year-old mother of two, and later, without anyone noticing, becomes a 19-year-old college student and the Mscribe's live-in nanny. Huge fan of Mscribe's writing. Davis_517, initially fought with Mscribe before seeing the light and becoming a huge fan of her writing, to the point where every single post of hers revolved around Mscribe's writing. Sarah James, another big fan, so devoted that she actually made a fan site purely for Mscribe's writing. Changes birthdays without anyone noticing. Anonymous Pakistani woman comments on Mscribe's profile saying that she is in an abusive marriage, but Mscribe's fanfiction makes her feel liberated. Has terrible grammar. After a while, Mscribe realizes adoring sock puppets can only get her so far, and switches tactics. Enter the army of Christian strawmen. Fermatojam, just your average Christian dude, passing Mscribe and the Harry Potter fandom for writing gay and pornographic content. He creates a big-name sinners list, which coincidentally includes all of Cassandra Clare's clique as well as Mscribe. This leads to all of the big-name sinners befriending each other as part of making fun of the whole thing. Killigan Haship, Fermatojam's spiritual advisor, who appears when Fermatojam is shamed into leaving, immediately picks up where Fermatojam left off, passing Mscribe. Potter Skinny, a third hardcore Christian who begins harassing Mscribe after Killigan Haship loses the attention of the fandom. She shocks everyone by adding racism into the mix. Mscribe is mixed race, and Potter Skinny calls her a zebra. Her affiliation with the Harry/Ginny pairing is also important. The Harry/Ginny community was viewed as overly conservative and toxic, so Potter Skinny was a believable straw man. Mscribe tries to spread the rumor that Potter Skinny and Killigan Haship are sock puppets of a well-known Harry/Ginny fan. Kelly, anonymous user who insists that Potter Skinny is part of the Harry/Ginny fanfiction community when said community claims they've never heard of her. HG_Empress, after the Christian strawman wrecked the reputation of the Harry/Ginny community, this account created a community for mocking Harry/Ginny fans. At this point, Mscribe had gained a massive amount of popularity through her public arguments with the Christian strawman, where the strawman would conveniently set her up with the perfect witty response every time. However, the Harry/Ginny community was mad, and they began investigating. They eventually published IP evidence to link some of these Christian sock puppets to Mscribe. You would think this would be the end of it, but, instead, Mscribe had one of her fangirl sock puppets take the fall, Clarabella 21, who, as Mscribe's live-in nanny, could use Mscribe's computer. Mscribe is so beloved and the Harry/Ginny community is so disliked that everyone believes she's innocent. Her next few sock puppets are less notable. 2. Watchful_entity and fandom_scruples are very similar to her first Christian strawman. They existed to shame Mscribe and the community for immoral writing. Fandom_scruples even created a fan blacklist very similar to the big name sinners list. 2 more, Karma_bitch and Sporkify, mark the Harry/Ginny community and praise Mscribe. Danitober47 is her last big sock puppet. The drama that spawned his existence is a bit complicated, but suffice to say, Mscribe wanted to start shit, and she'd figured out that racism was a good card to play. She accused a few other members of the community of being racist over some drama, and, when they negate her claims, Danitober47 appeared to defend their supposed racists. Naturally, he defends them by spewing the most racist bullshit possible, and getting into public debates with Mscribe where she argues circles around him. At this point, finally, enough IP and IRL evidence is collected to link Mscribe to all of her sock puppet accounts and prove that none of those people ever existed but her. This is published in the M''S.Scribe story. If you want a more detailed write-up, I recommend giving it a read. It explains a lot of things I skimmed over here, such as the conflict with the Harry/Ginny community, why people didn't believe the IP evidence at first, and how Clarabella21 managed to take the fall for Mscribe. Mscribe knew she was losing the war, but she couldn't resist one more sock puppet, an anonymous private investigator who commented on the Mscribe story claiming to have legal evidence to back up Mscribe's claims. Wildly, people believe this convenient pie, until they actually do their own investigating and discover it's all bullshit. At last, Mscribe is exposed, and eventually leaves fandom. To conclude, a list of other ridiculous lies Mscribe told to get sympathy and attention. A car crash leading to her being hospitalized for 3 days and needing help with day-to-day activities for the next several months, which Clarabella21 provided. Her injuries included major head trauma, which her doctor recommended writing Harry Potter fanfiction to help with, and acute vasogenic edema. A successful career as a backup singer, who had traveled to all 50 states. Simultaneously, a successful career working PR on Hillary Clinton's campaign with Joe Biden as her boss. Getting fired by Joe Biden after a stalker from the Harry/Ginny community outed her IRL for writing fanfiction. Lots of harassing anonymous emails making fun of her appearance. A restraining order against the first Christian straw man, because she claimed he was actually stalking her offline. So many anonymous trolls constantly commenting on her posts and harassing her, leading to her wittily shutting them down every time, and her friends and followers feeling protective of her. She's still out there somewhere. God only knows what she'll get up to the next time she's bored. TL, Doctor, woman wants to be a part of the popular clique, uses a combination of ridiculous lies, made-up fangirls, and Christian strawman sock puppets to build up enough fame to join the popular clique. Is eventually exposed.
Gaming fan team spends years recreating a beloved MMO from their childhoods that the company abandoned, doesn't add content one fan wanted. Said fan then tells company pedophiles are running the development team, gets it shut down in a matter of days by Empoleon_master. I was told to post this here by someone in r/subreddit drama. Context. Fusion Fall was a beloved MMO featuring characters and locations from Cartoon Network such as Faster's Home for Imaginary Friends, the cul-de-sac from Ed, Edd and Eddy, and even a recreation of the codename Kids Next Door Treehouse. It was shut down by Cartoon Network after being unprofitable and was since shut down in the early 2010s with no acknowledgement by Cartoon Network of its existence since then. 2 massive fan projects were created by an extremely dedicated team of developers who loved the game and wanted to recreate it, and even got some high-ups approval/got them to say they didn't care as long as they didn't make money off of it. That was until 10 hours ago when the development team got a takedown notice from Cartoon Network. Which it should be noted was their first and only acknowledgement of Fusion Fall existing since it was shut down. Along with this statement from the head developer of the project. It was a fun ride, we did what we set out to do. Thank you for all the support for the past 6 years. Don't go after CN, Don't go after any community members, talk about Fusion Fall fondly, don't let this define the game. I'm still gonna make videos, still gonna stream, still gonna be owned. Roll with the punches. Gonna run this back because it's so important. Do not us CN. Do not us anyone who was involved. That's what they want. If you do, they win. They lose if we come together as a community and remember Fusion Fall fondly, how it affected us, and why it's so important. The drama. According to numerous people on Twitter that contacted the person that was bragging about getting this project shut down, he accused the development team of being pedophiles and making money off of the project in emails to Cartoon Network, despite the project explicitly being free to avoid issues of taking money away from the company. Links to tweets containing screenshots of Discord chats with the person that brought this all down. 1. Him bragging about getting it taken down. 2. Him just shrugging off any blame and saying he did it because of the devs /_//. 3. This one says he won't stop until the entire dev team is off any related project. 4. Large series of messages with this guy saying he only did it because they didn't make it open source and could make tutorial videos on how to recreate an entire MMO but don't. You can't make this up. I believe this image someone tweeted in response to the entire fiasco summed up 2020 and this situation perfectly. This entire situation has generally left the entirety of the fanbase for this pretty upset and very sad. Proof 1. Proof 2. Proof 3. Proof 4. Proof 5. Proof 6. I'm sure you can find more people screen capping what this person has said on Discord on the Twitter account for the main Twitter account for the Revival project, but if I look through any more I believe I am going to punch a hole through my laptop which I can't afford a replacement for.